Welcome to the Fix at Fix for Wellness Wednesday. Happy that you're here so you can learn about why the order of operations matters. So maybe you remember in high school when you're learning math, maybe even before that, you talk about the order of operations. And there's a specific way or order that we do our mathematical operations, or else you're going to come up with a wrong answer. What we're going to be talking about today are things that we do in our life and how we can do them in the correct order to get a better answer. So I'm not going to be asking you to avoid certain foods or necessarily do anything that's going to take you more time. I just want you to do things in a different order that could be more beneficial for you. So we're going to go over 3 different areas that I think we can change the order of things to get different results. And this first one you may have heard me talk about before, and this is in terms of our food. And there's something that's called food sequencing. And what this means is just the order that we take in our foods, because that order has a really, really important impact on our overall health. So as a preface for this, you may have heard of your blood sugar or things creating a blood sugar spike. Ultimately, when we get a blood sugar spike or a glucose spike, you may have heard it called that, you're creating kind of a shock to the cells in your body. And the long and short of this is the more times that this happens in our life, the less healthy we're going to be, because those cells can't withstand that forever. So it might seem trivial in the moment. We create a little blood sugar spike, but it's not good for us and our overall health. So the more we can mitigate this, the better off we're going to be. And I'd rather give you the why you're going to want to do this and listen before I get into the how to do it. And the why is there was a study done where they took 2 groups of people. They ate the same exact meal, the same diet, and they did the same exact exercise. But one group, the group that did the correct order of eating, the right food sequencing, they lost 50% more weight. That's a huge difference. Imagine 2 groups buying the same stock, but someone making 50% more of the money. You would not be happy to be in that other group. So what is that correct order? It's very easy. We want to do our vegetables first, our fats and proteins second, and our carbohydrates last. When I say carbohydrates, that can mean sweets, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but this should be more of our carbs in the sense of maybe a white potato, sweet potato, quinoa, healthy things, but they are broken down as carbohydrates. So the reason that the order matters is when we break down these foods, when we chew them, when they're broken down in our intestines, it gets broken down from that big item on our plate into really small molecules. And we kind of lose our perception of this because ultimately when we chew, everything just kind of turns to mush. But when we chew our vegetables, they're still the biggest molecule once they're broken down into their small size. When we chew our protein and fat, it's medium size. And when we have carbohydrates, it breaks down really small, like grains of sand. So imagine having a funnel from your mouth to your stomach. If I put in my vegetables first, so that big molecule, that's going to kind of clog or block that roadway or that path a little bit more. Then we have our medium size, that's going to be behind it. That clogs it up a little bit more as well. Clog in a good way, we're not choking. And then our grains of sand, those carbohydrates at the end, less of those are going to hit our bloodstream and they're going to hit it a lot slower. So imagine the opposite. If I do all my grains of sand first, that's like opening a pixie stick, dumping that in. All of that's going to make it, it's going to hit our bloodstream fast. That's why when we have sugar by itself, you feel that little uptick, that little spike, and you feel its impact on you really quick, but it wears off pretty quick too. So when we eat in this correct order of operations, it really slows down those carbohydrates from hitting our bloodstream. So instead of seeing this big spike, we get a much more level curve that our body can tolerate. So if you tuned in a few episodes ago, I talked about 3 habits to keep for your health. And this is one that I went over because to me, this is something that you can implement every single day of your life, every meal. It doesn't matter where you are, you have the ability to eat your food in the right order. So I can take this a step further, and even if I'm making an unhealthy decision, right? Say the best option that's available out there is In-N-Out. So I'm not necessarily starting with a salad, right? But I can still eat my food in the right order. And even the subtle difference of having your burger to completion first and then fries, even though there's a little bit of carbohydrates on that bun, you're having that bun with your protein and fat and the veggies, your lettuce and tomato that's on your burger, pickles, onions, whatever else. So now when we get to those fries, instead of those grains of sand coming down really fast, which is what would happen if you reach for those couple handfuls before you even sit down, you're going to create that blood sugar spike. So if you can simply have a little bit of discipline, you're still getting to eat food that's maybe kind of off your normal menu, but it's going to mitigate the impact that this has on you from a negative perspective. Vegetables first, fat and protein second, carbohydrates last. At any time, we want to do this. The second thing we're going to talk about, there are some other scenarios where maybe you do want to have some sweets. And we are humans. Of course, in our clinic, we want to give you every ounce of information and ammo so that you can live your life as healthy as possible. But I don't want anyone to think that we never ever indulge in anything, or that we're judgy of anyone eating poor stuff every once in a while, because there is a time and a place. What we don't want it to be is your everyday and kind of your baseline. You talk a lot about being a professional baseball player. You're not going to get a hit every single time up at the plate, but we want to continue to use that discipline, have the same swing, and get on base, get hits, get home runs, so that our percentage, the percent of the time that we do well, outweighs the percent of the time that we maybe come up a little bit short. So as long as we're in that 80, 85, 90% of the time we're doing really well, we can feel not guilty about these few times that maybe we have an indulgence. But what I'm going to share with you is going to help mitigate even those times when we do have a little bit of an indulgence. So let's pretend that I really want to have a croissant. So what I can do is, number one, pick up that item and then plan to do a little activity after. So if I have that, and what I mean by activity, I'm not talking about going to the gym and doing a max out deadlift, but talking about an activity to the level of walking or some body weight exercise. So if I have that sugar intake, for me, maybe that's a croissant, maybe you want a pack of Skittles, whatever it is. If we're going to treat ourselves to that, there's two things that I can do. One, I can make sure, I follow my food sequencing and I don't eat that food on its own. An easy way to kind of mitigate, and this is a separate conversation, but we really don't want to have these sweets completely on their own. But if I just had my meal, my vegetables first, my protein and fat, carbohydrates last, and then having my dessert right at the end of that is a lot better time than waiting till much later. Well, let's just pretend we're not having another meal. I'm going to have some sugar right at that point. So when I have that intake, pretend there's a security guard. And their job when that food gets into our body is choosing, is this going to be used right now or is this going to be used later? And ultimately, by doing a low level of exercise, by walking for at least 10 minutes or doing some body weight exercise, we can trick our body into thinking we're being really active and kind of trick that security guard. You're speaking in his little earpiece. All right, they're active. Let's move it over for use. So instead of that food intake, that sugar, getting stored for later use, which later use, stored energy is fat. And anytime we can avoid something being stored as fat, the better off we're going to be. Because, yeah, there's ways to access it, but I'm going to explain why this is important in a second. We want to get that food immediately over for use. Because what this does when we kind of trick our body is not only does it get used, but our body has a capacity to burn more of it faster. So imagine that body is like going to the front of like an old train that's just powered by coal, and you have someone shoveling in. All of a sudden, that guy or woman who's shoveling in the coal can accept way more without getting backed up, and they can put it in even faster. So if you could ramp up their output by like 2-3 times what they normally can. And the reason that's so important, of course, we want that food to go for use instead of storage, because if we store fat, at best, we can utilize it, which is going to shrink the fat cell. But we can't get rid of the cell. We can't target the fat cell or destroy it. We can just shrink it. That's why someone's body who's never put on much fat or had stored energy and weighs a certain amount, maybe they weigh 100 pounds. Someone who has been very big and loses a lot of weight to get to 100 pounds, their body's going to feel a lot different and look different because this person, a lot of their tissue are these shrunken down pockets of fat cells all grouped together. So their skin's going to feel a lot more soft compared to this person who's maybe always been at this weight or has a lot of muscle mass. They're going to have a very different composition. So the more times we can avoid ever having to store something that we're trying to get our body to burn later, the better off we're going to be. So we've gone through 2 order of operations so far. Correct order of eating, vegetables first, protein and fat, carbohydrates last. If we're going to indulge in some time of sweet, a good time to do it is right after a meal. And I would even encourage you more of like a lunchtime meal as opposed to dinner, because our hormones get released when we sleep. And the less sugar we have, the more hormone gets released. So although you might only have one bad thing, maybe that candy bar or a little ice cream or something, it's better if we could do it at a time that we have more opportunity to burn it off. I'll save that for a separate conversation. The next one and the last one I want to talk about is a little tweak in our sleep. And for most people, if you've ever got tired on the couch or your favorite chair or wherever it is that you kind of decompress, we then wake up or we decide, hey, it's time to go to bed. And what most people do is we go into the bathroom, we turn on those bright lights, we brush our teeth, we wash our face, maybe we take our contacts out. We're doing multiple things. And that's very similar to the routine that we do in the morning to wake ourselves up. And our body neurologically has kind of a hard time separating those 2 different things. It's pretty much the same routine, but half the time you go to bed after and half the time you try to wake up. So doing this routine at a different time can be very beneficial. What we recommend is that right when we finish our meal, so after you have your dinner, go into the bathroom, brush our teeth, and let's do everything cosmetic. So take your makeup off, contacts out, brush your teeth, floss, mouthwash, whatever it is that you do. Get all of those things done and then go relax. So now if you get a little tired on the couch, in your chair, whatever it is, your office, and it's time to go to bed, we just walk ourselves to bed and go to bed. So now you're working with those hormones that are trying to wind you down instead of fighting it off. So the last thing I want to offer is what we do right when we get up. And this is more in the sense of making ourselves have good days. There's 3 things I think are really important that everyone should have time to do. And if you don't have time currently, push your alarm clock back a little bit. And I promise this is worth it. One is when we wake up, we have to find something to be grateful for. You woke up. That's a great start. You have a roof over your head. You have a bed that you sleep in. You're going to be able to step out of that bed. A lot of people can't do that in their day. They don't have the opportunity to step out of a bed. They might be stuck in a hospital. They're completely dependent on other people caring for them. So that's a pretty good thing to be grateful for. And we all have different things. It can be your family. It can be the place that you live. It can be the view that you see as soon as you open your eyes. But be grateful for that. So finding a few minutes to be grateful. Number 2 is finding a little bit of time to keep to yourself and be quiet. That can be meditation. That can be prayer. That can be journaling. But something where you're intentionally setting how this day is going to unfold. And that's being proactive instead of being reactive. And I hope it's a good day. I hope things go well. I hope no one needs too much from me. We would rather be proactive than reactive. And if you can have that little moment of silence to kind of get your mind right of why this is going to be a good day and why you're grateful to be here, it's going to make a huge difference. The 3rd step is either stepping outside or getting to a window where you can see the sun when it's only been up for those first about 2 hours. Looking at the sun is not going to hurt you. The angle is not going to affect your eyes. It's not like looking at the midday sun. This will do 2 things. One is it actually will prep your eyes to take on the light later in the day. But 2, and most important, this creates a 14-hour time release for what's called melatonin, which is your wind down hormone. So this is great to utilize, especially if you've traveled through different time zones and you're trying to acclimate to the sleeping in this new time zone. But outside of that, it's incredibly helpful to make sure that at the end of the night, when you start to wind down, those hormones are releasing at the right time. And they're going to help you get a great night's sleep. So that brings us to an end of our order of operations. So eat your food in the right order. Your vegetables first, your protein and fat, your carbohydrates last. If we're going to indulge in a snack, have it right, or a dessert, we'll say, have it right after that meal. Ideally, I think it's a little bit better to do it at lunchtime than dinner. If we're going to have that indulgence on its own, make sure we do some activity right after. If you can't go for a 10-minute walk, we want to do 30 reps of a body weight exercise. So that can be air squat is my favorite. We can do push-ups against a wall, so we're leaning forward towards the wall, or even calf raises. 30 reps is the minimum to kind of trick your body into utilizing that fuel. And then lastly, we talked about sleeping and kind of the cosmetic routine. Brush your teeth, wash your face, floss, makeup off right after dinner. That way, when we're tired, we can just go to bed. Look at the sun when you get up in the morning, and it'll help enhance those hormones being released at the right time so we can work with them instead of against them. Sleep is the number one thing that we can alter to increase our lifespan. So make sure you're getting a great sleep. That way you're maximizing the food that we put in during the day, that good nutrition, so your body actually uses it to build and repair, and that stimulus that we're getting when we exercise. So I hope that you can implement these tips, they stick with you, and please tune in next week for the Fix at 6 or Wellness Wednesday, whatever you want to call it, but we'll be going live every time, 6 o'clock. Get your tips. If you have any questions, please email us at info@fixmedicalgroup.com, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours. I'm Dr. Sam Wang. I'll see you next time.